Let's start with a brutal, uncomfortable truth. Most men don't even understand themselves. Not really. Yet somehow we walk around claiming we understand women. It's a bold claim, isn't it? Almost arrogant. And it's the first clue that something is deeply wrong with how we see the world. Now, you won't find that exact quote, "Men do not understand themselves, yet they dare to claim they understand women," in any of Plato's ancient texts, but if you actually dig into his work, if you look at it with ruthless honesty, you'll see this idea, this truth. It's practically screaming from every page. You see, Plato wasn't a dating coach. He wasn't writing guides on how to get the girl. He was a doctor of the soul. He was dealing with a much deeper disease, the fact that most men are completely blind to the forces that are actually running the show inside their own heads. Because he knew that an untrained mind, your mind, my mind, becomes the perfect playground for deception. And this is where it gets really interesting. You probably remember the allegory of the cave from school, right? Plato's famous story from the Republic. You've got these prisoners who have been chained up in a dark cave their entire lives. All they can see are shadows flickering on the wall in front of them, cast by a fire behind them. To them, these shadows aren't just shadows, they are reality. It's all they've ever known. They name the shadows, they worship them, they build their entire existence around these flickering illusions projected by unseen forces.
But here's the part that most people miss. Here's the secret that's hiding in plain sight. Plato doesn't say it directly, but those shadows on the wall weren't just about politics or social conditioning. No, my friend, one of the most powerful, most captivating shadows ever cast on the mind of man is the idea of woman. Not woman in her true human nature, but woman as a projection, an illusion, an idea that has been expertly crafted to keep men distracted, to keep them compliant, and to keep them emotionally enslaved. Let me break it down. Plato warns us that when the truth finally shines, the masses won't celebrate. They'll fight you. They will defend their illusions with everything they have. And think about it. Is there any illusion more intoxicating, more fiercely defended than the idea that women are these pure, innocent beings, completely incapable of manipulation? This is the grand theater where men lose themselves over and over again. A woman gives you a smile, and the untrained man's mind immediately calls it love. She sheds a tear, and he calls it pure sincerity. She places a hand on his arm, and suddenly it's destiny.
Plato would have laughed at this, not because he was cruel, but because he would see it for what it is, the behavior of a prisoner who refuses to even turn his head toward the light. A man who loves his chains because they're familiar. He lives in a world of shadows and calls it reality. You see, Plato's entire philosophy of wisdom starts with one powerful admission: I know that I know nothing. The beginning of all wisdom is the definition of terms. But how many men have ever stopped to actually define woman based on her true nature rather than the idealized performance she shows the world? How many men investigate the raw nature of feminine influence with the same intensity they used to study business or politics or sports? Almost none. And that is precisely why women dominate the emotional landscape of men without even trying. The woman doesn't have to be some evil genius plotting your downfall. She doesn't have to conspire against you. No, she simply has to exist. She exists as a perfect mirror to your own ignorance. She reflects back to you every weakness you refuse to confront in yourself, every insecurity you try to bury. Plato said it best: the worst of all deceptions is self-deception. Men deceive themselves into believing they are rational creatures, acting out of love and logic. But they aren't. They are prisoners.
And the chains aren't on their wrists, they are wrapped tight around their minds. And this brings us to Plato's most brutal truth of all. A woman doesn't manipulate you, your illusions about her do. The false goddess you have built in your own mind, that is what keeps you enslaved. She smiles and you crumble. She pulls away and you start chasing. You hand her all your power and then you call it devotion. But Plato warned you. He told you that those who build their life on shadows will never be able to handle reality when it finally arrives to burn their eyes. And so here you sit. You believe your heart is pure, your intentions are noble, and that this feeling you call love is righteous and true. But if you could just step outside of yourself for a moment, if you could become the philosopher like Plato commanded, you would see something else entirely. You'd see a man who has mistaken his chains for wings, a man who has traded truth for illusion and mistaken manipulation for love. Plato never romanticized the human condition. He was a realist. In fact, in one of his dialogues, the Phaedrus, he gives us this incredible image. He says the human soul is like a chariot. You are the driver, the charioteer. And this chariot is being pulled by two powerful horses. One horse is noble and strong. It represents reason, truth, and discipline. It wants to pull you upward toward the light. But the other horse, that one is wild. It's powerful, chaotic, and it craves pleasure, beauty, and instant gratification. And you, the driver, are in a constant state of war, wrestling with the reins, trying to control these two opposing beasts.
Now, here is where most men completely fail. The moment a woman enters the picture, a woman you find attractive, that wild horse in your soul goes absolutely crazy. It snaps the reins from your hands. It pulls you relentlessly toward her laugh, her scent, her curves, her attention. And you, the driver, weak and completely untrained, just let it happen. You let this beast drag you like a fool toward your own ruin. You don't question the horse. You don't fight its pull. You call this madness falling in love. When in truth, Plato saw it for what it was, spiritual slavery. In another one of his works, the Symposium, Plato describes love not as this mutual happy partnership, but as a form of madness sent by the gods. A divine madness, yes, but madness all the same. A force that blinds men, consumes them, and makes them worship a fleeting image of beauty while they completely forget what is real and true. And unless you learn to master this madness, you are nothing but a pawn in its game, a slave to temporary pleasures, a worshiper of shadows. And here's the brutal twist in all of this. Women know this. Whether they know it consciously or just instinctively, on a deep primal level, they understand that men are ruled by this madness. They understand the incredible power they hold over a man who has not disciplined his own soul. She doesn't need to be malicious to destroy you. She doesn't need to have an evil plan. She only needs to exist in your mind as the prize. The moment you turn her into your purpose, your meaning, your ultimate reward, it's over. Because from that point on, you no longer see her. You see the illusion you need her to be. And this, my friend, is the perfect recipe for manipulation. Do you know what Plato feared more than anything, more than war, more than disease? The corruption of the soul. He warned again and again that a man who cannot govern himself will inevitably be governed by others, by tyrants, by politicians, and by flatterers. And who is a greater flatterer than a woman who knows you are desperate for her validation? She becomes the puppeteer, and you become the eager puppet dancing on her strings. You sacrifice your dignity, your purpose, your entire mission in life just for a moment of her attention. You think she is the one playing the game, but the game began long before she ever showed up.
The real game is the war inside of you, the battle between your higher self and your base desires. And every time you choose pleasure over principle, fantasy over reality, she doesn't even need to defeat you. You defeat yourself. Plato wrote that the just man does not permit the several elements within him to meddle with one another, or the different parts of his soul to usurp the functions of one another. Yet here you are, negotiating with your emotions like a coward, hoping she will choose you, validate you, complete you. This is the mark of a man who has escaped one cave only to immediately build another one for himself, this time with golden bars and velvet chains.
So let me ask you this, and be honest with yourself. When was the last time you truly, deeply questioned why you chase women? When was the last time you asked yourself, is she leading me closer to truth, or is she dragging me deeper into illusion? Most men will never ask these questions, because asking them demands courage. It demands that you admit that you might have been wrong, that you've been fooled, that the beautiful stories you tell yourself about love and devotion and destiny might be nothing but smoke and mirrors. And until you face that reality, until you stand like a philosopher and look directly into the blinding light of truth, you will remain a slave, not to women, but to the idea of woman that you refuse to let go of. Plato understood that entire societies are built on powerful narratives, on myths and stories designed to keep people obedient. And nowhere is this more obvious than in the story men have been fed about women. You've been told she is your better half. You've been told she completes you. You've been told she holds the keys to your happiness. But Plato knew better. In the Republic, he makes it clear that society must be ruled by those who have seen the truth, the philosopher kings. Yet the great tragedy of our time is that most men never even become the rulers of their own minds. Let me reveal to you the real structure of this game. Plato saw the human soul as divided into three parts: reason, spirit, and appetite. Reason seeks wisdom and truth. Spirit seeks honor and victory. But appetite just seeks pleasure and comfort. Food, sex, validation, the easy stuff. Most men, when it comes to women, live entirely in their appetite. She smiles, you feel pleasure. She gives you attention, you feel validated. She touches you, you feel alive. But this is the lowest part of your being. This is the part Plato warned must be ruled by reason, or it will drag you, your mission, and your entire life into ruin. And this is why women have such a terrifying influence over weak men. She doesn't need to challenge your mind. She doesn't need to respect your mission. All she has to do is feed your appetite, and you will sell your soul for another taste. Like a man lost in the desert, you will crawl on your hands and knees, begging for a single drop of validation, while she stands over you, holding the very water you once had the power to find for yourself. You think I'm exaggerating? Look around you. Men betray their families for a stranger's touch. Men destroy their businesses for the approval of a woman who doesn't even respect them. Men take their own lives because she left. What greater proof do you need that you are being ruled by the lowest part of yourself? And here is Plato's greatest warning, hidden in plain sight for over 2,000 years. No man is free who is not master of himself. If you have not mastered your appetites, your cravings, your desperate need for validation, then you are not a free man. It doesn't matter how much money you make, how successful you are, or how many women you attract. If they can break you with a single glance, you are still a prisoner. But there's more. In his final work,
the laws. Plato argued that the downfall of a great city begins when its men allow pleasure to rule over discipline. And what is our society today, if not a graveyard of men who have sacrificed their strength on the altar of feminine approval? You see it everywhere. Men bowing, apologizing, and submitting. Not to truth, not to principle, but to the fear of losing her. Plato never taught men to hate women. He taught men to see clearly. The woman is not your enemy. She is a reflection of your own ungoverned soul. She plays the game because you invited her to the table, blind, desperate, and completely unprepared. But you can flip the board. You can rise from the cave. You can reclaim the throne of your own mind. But only if you dare to face the one thing most men fear more than anything: the truth about themselves. Let me tell you something Plato only hinted at, but the modern world refuses to accept. Women test men. They test you constantly, for one simple reason: to reveal the weakness that already lives inside of you. She is not the cause of your collapse. She is the mirror that shows you who you really are when the pressure is on. And this is the ultimate irony. When you chase her, when you compromise your values, when you betray your mission and beg for her validation, you are committing an injustice against your own soul. You think you're serving love, but you are violating yourself.
So what's the cure? Plato gave us the answer. The highest purpose of a man is to pursue the good, to climb out of the cave and face the light, even if it burns. To see the woman not as a goddess, not as a curse, but simply as a mirror showing you your undisciplined appetites, your fragile ego, your desperate need for approval. Do you have the courage to face that reflection? Do you have the strength to stand, not as a beggar, not as a slave, but as a man who governs himself first? Because until you do, you will always be played. You will always fall for the game because you refuse to master the player within you. The man who rules himself cannot be manipulated. He cannot be broken. He cannot be played. So here's my challenge to you. Stop chasing the shadow. Stop worshiping the illusion. Stop trading your soul for temporary affection. Stand up, look in the mirror, and face the parts of yourself you've been too afraid to confront. And when you do, you will never again fear the games women play, because you will have finally outgrown the need to play at all. If this message lit a fire in you, if it shook you awake, then don't let it end here. Take a moment right now to hit the like button, share this video with another man who needs to hear this, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. We are building a brotherhood of men who refuse to live in the shadows, men who dared to rule their own minds, their lives, and their destinies. The link is in the description. Join us. The world doesn't need more men chasing illusions. It needs more men who have found their own light.